I've talked about the Enterprise Architecture Framework TOGAF quite a lot in a lot of my videos, and people have shown interest to know more about the TOGAF certification. So I decided that I will cover the TOGAF certification today. We will take a look at it from the Open Group website perspective. So I will show you how to navigate the Open Group website, how to find all the materials that you're going to need to study for the TOGAF certification. And then we will also do a comparison between doing a certification through self-study and then taking a formal training from a authorized training partner. What are the differences and what are the benefits, okay? But before we start off, if you're enjoying the videos that I'm posting on Enterprise Architecture Radio, then please let YouTube know. Like and subscribe and share with like-minded people who you think would enjoy these videos. It could be your peers, your colleagues, your friends, whoever, right? All right, on to the Open Group website then. So this is your Open Group website. You can go to it through opengroup.org, and I'm going to show you how to navigate it. First, it will ask you to create an account or login. So, if you're not logged in, you have to create an account. Now, this account is free. So, just create an account. My account is already created. So I'm going to click on login, and my password manager is going to log me in. There you go. And here in library, you can go to TOGAF library. This is where you're going to find all the material that you're going to need to study for the exam. You see all of these links here, TOGAF standard, and then translation glossary, series guides, study guides, white papers, webinars. We'll not go through all of it, but we'll go through some of it, and I'll show you what it is. Now, first let's go to TOGAF standard. Okay. Now, when you go to the TOGAF standard, it will show you so many links here which are all related to various versions of the TOGAF standard. The TOGAF standard 10th edition is the one that we are interested in. If you click on view product, it will take you here to, and it's asking me to log in again. So let me just log in. So I've already logged in, so it's logged me in. And then you will see here the View HTML version edition and the View Digital Portfolio edition. We click on the View HTML edition, that's the one that we are looking at, and then add to downloads. Now it doesn't really add, you don't really download anything because it's the HTML edition. You're going to see it online. So, I've downloaded it, I've shown it to many people many times. So the TOGAF standard 10th edition shows up in your My Downloadable Products. You click on the TOGAF 10th edition and it opens up on the browser. Now it's supposed to automatically redirect, or you are supposed to click here. I'm going to click here, and here we go. Now this is your TOGAF 10th edition entire book, or the body of knowledge as they call it. Everything, almost 70 to 80% of the entire TOGAF standard is here in this body of knowledge. Now this body of knowledge contains just 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections or 6 parts to it, right? You have your introduction and core concepts, which are introduction to the TOGAF framework and its various components and so on. Then you have the architecture development method. Now architecture development method is a step-by-step method of how to do enterprise architecture. That's covered here. And then you have ADM techniques. So the left-hand side, by the way, is the table of contents where you will see everything that you need to see. And then there are some techniques such as capability assessment, or enterprise business transformation readiness assessment, or requirements gathering, and so on and so forth. So there are, gap analysis is a technique. There are a list of techniques there, which you can use in the various phases of the ADM to do enterprise architecture work. And then how to apply the ADM. So there are iterations, and then there are levels. So you take the architecture development method, and how do you apply it in the real world scenario? That's what's covered as a part of the applying the ADM. And then you have architecture content. Now this is the most, the fleshy piece of the TOGAF framework. Like, you have method and techniques and all of that, but you have the content. Content is essentially what is the information that you need to gather and how do you gather it. So there are architectural building blocks, and then there are artifacts, and then there are deliverables. All of these form, and within artifacts you've got catalogs, matrices and diagrams, all kinds of diagrams that you can prepare as an enterprise architect to collect information about the organization. And then you have architectural building blocks, which is your meta model, as they call it, in which you have, like, for example, user is a building block, actor is a building block, application is a building block, data entity is a building block, and so on and so forth. And then you have deliverables, which are large documents which require approval and sign off, like architecture definition document or architecture requirements gathering document, and so on and so forth. So all of this is contained within the architecture content or architecture content framework, which is, by the way, a part of the TOGAF framework in general. And then we have the enterprise architecture capability and governance. So architecture governance and architecture capability are a part of the TOGAF framework. What that means is architecture capability is building the enterprise architecture capability. That is your team, your architecture processes, how you are going to perform governance, and so on and so forth. And then governance is, again, governance of, you set up standards and then you ensure that the standards are being followed. Now, there is a general opinion that enterprise architecture is mostly about governance, but it is not. Enterprise architecture is a lot more than just governance. Governance is an integral and important part of TOGAF framework, but it's not everything. Okay. And then if you look at here, so these are the 6 different parts. You can go inside and get into the details. Like, for example, if you go to architecture development method here, you will see that there's an overview, and then there is architecture development cycle. How do you cycle through the ADM, and then preliminary phase, the various phases of the ADM. So if you look at the ADM, this is a typical ADM where you have, or this is a ADM, and you have preliminary phase, architecture vision phase, business, data, application, technology, architecture phases, and then you have opportunities and solutions, migration planning, and so on and so forth. These are the different phases of the ADM. So it shows you how to collect information about the organization in a step-by-step manner, right? And then if you go into architecture vision phase, for example, and I'm clicking on the table of contents here, you will see that there are objectives, inputs, steps, outputs, and approach, right? These are 5 things that are there for all phases of the ADM. There is a objectives. Objectives are what you want to do as a part of this phase. And then inputs are what are the prerequisites that you are going to require to execute this phase properly. And then there are steps, which is what do you need to do. Then there are outputs, is what are the deliverables of this phase, and there is an approach. And all of this description is given here below, right? And the same thing you will find in all the phases of the ADM. So this was architecture vision. If you go to business architecture, you will find these, objectives, inputs, steps, outputs, and approach. Similarly, if you go to, let's say, these are the steps. And then if you go to information systems architecture and data architecture. So in data architecture, you will find the same steps, objectives, inputs, steps, outputs, and approach. So different phases of the ADM, right? Now let's go back. There are techniques and all of this. So this is the core body of knowledge. And then if you go below here, this is what you call a practice. So general how-to, in which you'll find some few extra links. Now, if you click on this link, it will take you to a series guide. Right? This is called a practitioner's approach to developing enterprise architecture following the TOGAF ADM. Now, you can access these series guides from your TOGAF library also. If you remember, I showed you in the original TOGAF library homepage. Once you get here, the third link is what you call the series guides. Now, if you click on this and go to this page, all the series guides are here. Now, this is one of the differences between the TOGAF 9.2 and TOGAF 10, right? In TOGAF 9.1, it started in 9.2 and matured in 10. In TOGAF 9.1, there were 2 reference architectures, the technical reference model and the integrated information infrastructure reference model, which were a part of the core body of knowledge. And there was only one core body of knowledge for TOGAF up until TOGAF 9.1. In TOGAF 9.2, they introduced the concept of of series guides, and they removed the TRM and the IIIRM from the core body of knowledge and changed it into a series guide, right? So the core body of knowledge became leaner. Now, why they did that is various reasons. One is the TRM and the triple IRM, in my opinion, is a little bit outdated and not very relevant in the modern context anymore. And I think they probably realized this. They realized that it's not very relevant anymore and it needs to be removed from the core body of knowledge. Second thing that they realized is that as technology is advanced, as methods advance, as processes advance, more and more reference material and reference architectures is being written. If you want to introduce this into the core body of knowledge, the body of knowledge will keep on changing. And then you'll have to introduce minor versions of TOGAF like 10 and then 10.1, 10.2, 10.3 and so on and so forth. So what they did was they modularized the TOGAF framework. They kept the core body of knowledge same and they removed everything which keeps on changing and added it to the series guide section. So now the series guides can keep on getting updated and the core body of knowledge doesn't have to change. So they've modularized that. Now these series guides keep on changing. If you look at these series guides, and I have read these series guides end to end a few months ago, and now I see that there are new series guides added, like architecture roles and skills I've not read in the past, and then you have an approach to selecting building blocks is also not something that I've read in the past. Environmentally sustainable information systems is new, but I have read in the past microservices architecture, for example, or digital business reference model, and which is, by the way, a very important series guide from an exam standpoint, which we will cover later. Governance reference model I've read and so on. So it keeps getting added and there are 4 pages, if you can see here, right? So these series guides keep on changing, and this is one of the main differences of TOGAF 9.1 and 10, which raises an interesting question. From an exam standpoint, which are the series guides that you would have to read to make sure that you can clear the exam properly? Not all of them, thankfully. Okay, not all of them are important from an exam standpoint. So how you find out is if you go to the book again. So here is we are in the book right now. Let's say we go to architecture development method. And we go to, let's say, architecture vision phase, right? When we go to the architecture vision phase, the table of content changes and you will see a list of series guides here, all right? This is the TOGAF fundamental content. Fundamental content is the core body of knowledge that I was talking about. And the relevant series guides, TOGAF series guides, are here. A practitioner's approach to developing an enterprise architecture using TOGAF standard in digital enterprises, digital technology adoption. So the relevant series guides you would be able to find here. You can click there and go. And these get repeated, by the way. All right. This is not depending upon which section of the fundamental content you are reading, the series guide changes, but it's not unique. Like the same architecture practitioner's approach to developing enterprise architecture following the TOGAF ADM could come in multiple phases of the ADM, for example, right? So, this gives you an idea about which are the series guides which are important for you to read from an exam standpoint. Now, from an architecture standpoint though, I think, like I told you in my previous episode, if you want to become an enterprise architect, you are picking a career in which you are going to read a lot. You're going to read all the time, right? This is an example. If you want to become a really good enterprise architect, go through this material on a regular basis. I've read it end to end. It's updated and I'll go through it once again. But it's not a very dry read. I mean, it's a very interesting read in my opinion. Of course, it's a case-to-case basis and different people will find it interesting or not interesting depending upon. But in my opinion, it's very interesting and you should definitely read through it. Now, this is the core TOGAF framework and the series guides that you will study. But from an exam standpoint, you will need you'll need more study. You'll need to go through it properly. So there are links here which I am going to share, like the TOGAF Enterprise Architecture Foundation Level 1 online study materials, right? Open Group provides this in their website itself. It's $239. Now, before we go here, I want to explain to you what Foundation and Practitioner is. Now, TOGAF is split into two parts. There is Foundation and there is Practitioner. Foundation is obviously an overview of all of TOGAF. What is TOGAF framework, what is the open group, what are the objectives of the open group, what are some of the other communities which are there. And then you have your architecture development method, your content framework, your guidelines, your techniques, applying the ADM, etc., right? All the different parts of the ADM and series guides and all that, but at a very high level, right? And then you have Practitioner, in which you get into the depth and the nitty-gritties of various techniques and all the content, right? Your architectural building blocks, your artifacts, your catalogs, matrices and diagrams, your deliverables and each deliverable and what are the different things that you collect in each deliverable, and various catalogs and matrices and diagrams that help you gather information about various aspects of the organization, such as if you are in application architecture, for example, there will be an application interaction diagram which will show you all the different applications and how they interact with each other, or there'll be an application business function matrix which will show you how each application supports the different business functions within the organization, and so on and so forth. So all this content is covered as a part of the content framework in depth in the practitioner section. Now, the exams are also split into two. There is an exam 1 and exam 2. Exam 1 is Foundation, which will test you your knowledge of the TOGAF framework, and exam 2, which will test your understanding and application of the TOGAF framework in a real world situation, right? Exam 1 has 40 questions. It is a multiple choice and you have to get 24 right to be able to crack it. And it's a simple multiple choice, which means that one answer is right and 3 answers are wrong, right? And it's a closed book. And you will get 60 minutes to answer all the questions, right? Which is, in my opinion, more than enough. And then you have exam 2, which is the Practitioner. This is a complex multiple choice question, in which case you will get a scenario. They will describe a scenario that you are an enterprise architecture of an XYZ organization, and now there is going to be a merger, and you need to, etc., etc. And then they will give you 4 solution scenarios and you have to pick one, right? 3 out of these scenarios are going to be the right answer and 1 of them is wrong. But there is a best answer which will get you 5 points, there is a second best answer which will get you 3 points, and there is a third best answer which will get you 1 point. And then the fourth answer is a distractor. You have to pick the best answer and you have to get 24 points out of 40. There are 8 questions in the examination and you'll get 90 minutes to crack this exam. So what you see on the screen here is the study material for the Foundation exam, level 1, right? And then you have study material for Practitioner exam, which is level 2, right? And I'll share all these links in the show notes. And then you have TOGAF Practitioner Bridge. Now, another point that I wanted to raise is the Bridge exam. A Bridge exam is if you're already a TOGAF 9.2 certified, then you don't have to give the full exam, you can give the Bridge exam. The Bridge exam is smaller because there are, I think, 20 or 30 questions only in the part 1, and there are some 3 or 4 questions only in the part 2, right? It will only test whether you know what has changed in TOGAF 10 or not, okay? Otherwise, it assumes that you already know what TOGAF 9.2 is, right? So this is the TOGAF Enterprise Architecture Practitioner Bridge online study or self-study material. And then you have your TOGAF Enterprise Architecture Part 1 practice test, which is a simulation or a test of the Part 1 exam. And you can buy this for $9.99. And then you have the TOGAF Enterprise Architecture Part 2 practice test, which is again a practice test. And then there is finally the Bridge exam practice test. So all of this material is available on the Open Group website. Now the question arises is, should you do a self-study and give the exam, or should you take a formal training from an authorized training provider? Now there are benefits and downsides, pros and cons of both. The one big difference, obviously, everybody would think about if they are trying to do a self-study is the cost, right? So if you do a self-study, let's say, all right, then there is an exam voucher that you will have to buy, and each exam voucher is going to cost you about $625, which includes within it part 1 and part 2 both exams. And by the way, you can give the exam together or you can give them separately, and that's some information that's available on the website. You can find out, but approximately it costs you about $625 depending upon where you are buying it from, right? You can buy it from Pearson VUE, you can buy it from the Open Group website. Both places, just compare the price and see which one is less and go for it. So $625 for the exam vouchers, and then if you buy all the self-study pack, it costs you about $299, all inclusive. So it's going to cost you approximately $1,000 for the self-study pack, right? Including exam voucher, self-study, practice tests, etc. Right? And it's going to involve a lot of study. You are going to have to study everything by yourself and give the exam. If you go for a training from an authorized training provider, right? Then what happens is you get the vouchers for free. So you don't have to pay for the vouchers separately. You get the entire study pack from the training provider, right? Because you've paid for it. And you get guided learning. There will be a trainer, certified trainer, certified by the Open Group, and not TOGAF certified. He'll be certified as a trainer from the Open Group who will give you the right guidance and during the training, right? And it's an interesting experience because the training is designed in such a way where you have breakout sessions and they'll give you a challenge question and everybody goes together, has a discussion, and then they come up with a solution and so on. So it's an interesting session. And that's going to cost you approximately, and I can't tell you for sure because every training provider has a different cost depending upon how good or bad or, etc., how renowned or reputed they are. Approximately, I'm thinking $1,300 to $1,700. So you about spend $300 to $500 extra if you go for a training, right? The advantage of the training is that you'll be guided properly. You'll get the self-study. Now, this knowledge that I gave you about navigating the website is going to be useful for you anyway, whether you go for an authorized training or whether you decide to do a self-study, because the training is about 32 hours. And in my opinion, it is not enough to cover the entire body of knowledge and all the series guides. All right, you will have to study, okay, even after doing the training. Only thing is the training gives you is it clarifies your concepts. It allows you to ask questions to the trainer. It gives you a chance to discuss with other attendees and and overall experience, right? And you get everything ready-made. You get the vouchers. You don't have to go around looking for where to buy the voucher from or and so on and so forth. So there are pros and cons to both sides. It depends on you as to what you decide. You will still have to study. You will still have to go through the body of knowledge. You will still have to read the series guides. The training is not going to give you everything ready-made. In my opinion, it takes about 30 days of self-study even after the training before you can give the exam, right? That much work is required. So that's all about the TOGAF certification and TOGAF examination and about the comparison between a proper training and a self-study. I'll share all these links on the show notes. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about this and tell me what you decide. Now, do you want to go with self-study or do you want to take an authorized, do you want to take a training from an authorized training provider? So that's a wrap for me. I hope you're enjoying the videos that I'm posting on Enterprise Architecture Radio. If you are, then please let YouTube know. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. Once again, I would like to remind you that Enterprise Architecture Radio is not just a podcast. It is a collaboration platform and it is a passion project for me, right? More than it being a podcast, I want it to be a collaboration platform. I want people to come together, like-minded people who enjoy talking about enterprise architecture and business and technology and all this fun stuff. There is a LinkedIn group, there is a Telegram group, there is a Discord server, all named Enterprise Architecture Radio. Look it up and join and start a conversation. And it doesn't have to be something complicated. It could be something very simple. It could be an interview that you're preparing for, or I don't know, an examination or the certification exam, for example, or a business challenge that you are facing, or setting up an enterprise architecture practice in your organization, or thinking about what you should do in your career ahead. Ask questions, talk about your challenges, talk about your accomplishments, And when somebody talks about their accomplishments and their challenges, support them, encourage them, answer their questions and guide them if you can, right? Because that's the whole fun. Working alone is not fun. Getting together and doing something together, that's the whole fun of it. So, once again, collaborate. Learn from each other, guide each other. Most importantly, have a ton of fun.